So, ladies, this one is for you. Talking about, again, most of my videos is geared to MGTOW, men going their own way. They've been hurt, used, abused by women a lot of times, and most of the times, and in some cases, the men themselves are at fault, have a part to play in their own misery, which I try to address. If you look at some of my videos, you will see some of those things. You will also get little tidbits on how you as a woman can improve yourself to be a better wife or to even find a husband. Um, Although the marketplace for women, considering there are more women in the world than men, to us you're not that rare, so you're not that as valuable as you think you are, because there's just so much more of you all out there. So as long as you understand that, continue watching this video, and hopefully you can pick up something and do something with it. Now, my videos are more spiritually based because spiritual health tends to be ignored by most people, and hopefully this one can benefit you. So, um, if you look at Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy, I tend to lean more to the Eastern philosophies. Western philosophy, which is religious based, Christian, Islam, Judaism, those type of things, you would find that even though they touch on things as far as relationships and things like that, more from a religious perspective, the Eastern religions talk about the same topics more from a spiritual perspective, not religious. So I did a video previous to this one where I talked um, about some of the qualities that a woman should have or look or be at least working on that men should look for in a woman. And this one I'm gonna expand on that and talk to you directly. There's the basic stuff: stay in shape, be compliant, submissive, all that stuff. Those are all the superficial stuff. You have to have a grasp, basically a balance of the seven healths, not necessarily the eighth. The eighth health, which is financial health, is not an official health, but I add it in there. The eighth health of which is financial health. At least make sure all your student loans are paid off and you're able to manage your own money before going into a relationship. Because 9 times out of 10, you as a woman will probably end up managing the household and the finances that flow in and out of the household to maintain it, while a man goes out and protect and provide. So the eighth health is still important, but not necessary, because a man doesn't look for your financial what you make financially as a way to be attracted to you. It's just not important to us. In some men it is important, but in general, no. So with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the things you need to consider. And this is more on a spiritual side, so I'll just read it. There's something called eightfold perfection, which is um, in like the ancient Sanskrits and stuff like that, the Puranas, the Eastern philosophies, and written about 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. When you listen to it, make sure you look at it from a cultural perspective as how it was, and see if it's applicable to you today. Now, the eight divisions of yoga, or the yogic system, which is the eightfold perfection as well, is primarily practiced by women. To be a good wife, if you're able to handle and grasp these, it should be no problem with you, finding a husband or a man that would appreciate you and elevate you and love you, um, as a traditional man should, and not necessarily as a modern man, but a traditional man, because a modern woman cannot be a traditional wife. you either be a modern woman, be happy with it and live with the consequences of it, and be happy with that situation, or be a traditional wife. You can't have both. Um, that's just the way things are. And the 8 divisions of yoga, the yogic performance, or yoga performance, are described as control of the senses. That's the first one. You got to have control of your senses. Um, so, in other words, you can't be, you know, promiscuous and all that. You got to be in control of your senses. You can't want everything. That greed factor, the 7 deadly sins is pretty much tied to this. A lot of that is tied to false ego, which is part of the modes of material nature, which I did a video on, so you could look at that later on. The strict following of rules and regulations. That could apply to many things, but I'm sticking it to just a relationship. Um, follow the rules and regulations that's based on relationships. Um, the Bible, I think, talks about a golden rule: do unto others as you'll have them do unto you. Rules and regulations can be looked at in that way when it comes to your relationship, with especially with your husband or boyfriend or whoever, the man you intend to live your life with, have kids with, etc. Strict following. The third one is practice of the different sitting postures. I have no one. I am not at a level to understand what that means. So hopefully you can take the initiative and go out there and research it yourself. Um, because this is Eastern philosophy, you probably have to look at Hinduism, possibly Buddhism, and a couple other, some of the Asia Minor culture to understand what that means. To me, I am not at that level yet. So I will not make an attempt to describe this to you, and I'm not ashamed to say I don't know. If I am a know-it-all, then you shouldn't be listening to me at all. So for that one, I'll leave to you to do your own research on, because it's beyond the scope of what I am capable of describing at this time in my life. All right, the fourth thing is control of the breath. Proper breathing techniques is part of yogic sciences. Yoga, as it's taught today, has no real bearing on this. What you would want to do, it is meditative in a sense, where you focus on proper breathing that comes from proper posture and things like that. It can also mean calmness. In psychology, you take a breath before you react to something, so you respond a little more sensible or with a little intellect. To me, even though there are many meanings to this, if you were to look at the Sanskrits, and again, I encourage you to do your research on it, the way I have interpreted that or understood this to mean is controlling your breath, controlling your temperament. When something rubs you the wrong way, you take that breath, and then you process and respond in a way that doesn't humiliate, diminish the person, your partner, your husband, your boyfriend, your children, and therefore by not diminish your dignity or your elevated status of elegance. Withdrawing the senses from sense objects. Okay? Again, this is another one of those things that I don't fully understand, so I won't make an attempt to try and explain something I don't fully understand. I encourage you to do your research on that particular one. And hopefully, again, it's Eastern philosophies. Look it up. Maybe you'll find something that I can't. Then post something in the comment section down below, so I in turn can learn something from you. The sixth one is concentration of the mind. That ties into mental health, psychology and things like that. You got to be in control of your intellect. Well, your intellect, not necessarily intellect. Your mind, in the sense of how you think, your mindset. Again, take that breath, think things through before responding. It's excluding emotion, responding or doing things out of emotion, and you're doing things more logically. It doesn't mean you stop being feminine, um, but you have a more concentration of mind. You have your purpose, you have your goals within the family, and you focus on it mentally. And it allows you to execute whatever the family needs are because you're focused on it. You're more tuned to your husband, your children, the needs in the household, things like that, because you have a concentration of mind. Meditation is the seventh one, and meditation can come in many forms, either through some of the yogas out there. Not necessarily the Western practice of yoga, because there's a lot of stretching and stuff like that. It might help, but you want to explore true yogic science, through true yoga, true meditation, um, and that is a subject all by itself. But I encourage you to go and do your own research. Look at true yoga from the Hindu culture, maybe some of the Hindu temples. Talk about true yogic science, not the Western stuff of stretching you, kicking yourself behind the head with your feet, doing a James Brown split while licking your toes, things like that. The tree posture and all that. That's exercise. It has some concentration. It does have some meditative properties to it. But in this case, as I'm reading it, how it applies to the context in which I'm reading it is more about meditation unto the Lord, unto God, your spirit, the spiritual health. You're meditating on your. If you don't want to be religious and meditate on God or Jesus or Allah or Jehovah or whoever, whatever God, what religion you grew up in, if you don't want to focus on the religious stuff on it, focus on you as a spirit being. Meditate on yourself. You're somewhere here located within the heart. That's why when you get dumped or someone die, you feel pain here. You feel sensation here and not here or anywhere else. This is where you are. Focus your energy, your mental focus here while breathing. That's another way to meditate. And lastly, self realization. Um, Self realization is understanding that what you see here, is not me. I am a spirit being living within here. And you have to get to that self realization that you are also a spirit being living with have a consciousness living within this body, where you're using this body to experience life in this dimension of existence. Without this body, you'll be unconscious and you won't be able to experience anything. And again, that leads back to the modes of material nature, which you could look at the video I did on that, uh, as applied to MGTOW, but it can still be applied to you as a woman. All right, so that's the eight modes of perfection that women need to pursue. Um, if there are other aspects to it, and it states that a man is considered fortunate if he has a good wife, right? Not a good woman, a good wife. And there, I will read them something. It says, this is a Manu. If you look at ancient Hindu religion or culture, there's a story about a Manu, um, who was a devotee of God, and he said he desired to marry a girl of like disposition, who may prove to be a variability of plenty in my married life. This is one of the man who's asking for a wife to God. And the author, Prabhupada, he explains what that means. That in other Vedic texts, a woman, a, a good wife, you a man is fortunate if he has a good wife, not a good woman. Um, Being like disposition meanings not necessarily physical beauty. They both have equal physical beauty, but it means of mindset, similar mindset as far as spiritual advancement. But if that's something that's beyond what you're interested in doing as a woman, as far as spiritual advancement, um, you know, you have to prepare. You still have to prepare yourself to be a wife. All right. So, um, the story also goes on to say that God told Manu that he already prepared, knew set that in motion, and there's this woman. The parents is actually on the way to meet him, to give him their daughter as his wife, because she's already a wife. She's been trained to be a wife. She has good disposition. They're like-minded as far as that goes. Um, she has the 8 qualities that I just mentioned. Um, you as a woman may not, a modern woman may not have been brought up that way, where you have access to being a good wife because you weren't taught. But you can still be a good wife, if you dedicate yourself to doing so, to practicing some of the basic things. Say you're single, you didn't grow up, you grew up in a single mother household, but you still want to be a good wife, a good woman. Um, Stop focusing on the sexual nature side of things. That's one. Sexuality, though it's important in a relationship, is completely insignificant when compared to everything else. The devil is in the details. Sex is not a detail. So, you want to be in a relationship, you want to start practicing now. So, if you have male friends you've known for years, um, they come over to party or whatever anyway, or you go over and hang out with them all the time, practice with them. You know, you cook dinner, you feed them, you clear the dishes, you keep the place clean. Either not their place, but your place when they come over, clean the place up. You serve them and get their response. Observe the response or ask questions. Where I would suggest you don't do something like that is, say um, you have a girlfriend that's married, or have a boyfriend or whatever, and you practice with them. It can be threatening to her, especially if she doesn't do those things for her man, and he might find you more appealing because you're doing some of the little things like clearing the table, cooking a good meal, making sure the place is clean, making sure he has everything he needs, to be comfortable. So in a situation like that, I would say stick to single male friends that you know. Even if they're gay, you could practice with a gay guy too. It's better to practice with a straight guy because you get a more realistic response. And of course, do all the other things like get in shape. If you're overweight, a lot of women are overweight nowadays. Get in shape, take care of yourself. Of course, focus on the seven healths, all aspect of that. But some of the basic stuff is get in shape. Learn to cook if you can't cook. Stop being lazy when it comes to cleanliness, because cleanliness is part of godliness, goodness. In the modes of material nature, you have goodness, ignorance, and passion, and cleanliness falls under goodness. So make sure everything is clean, or you like maintaining that stuff. And hopefully, with practice and feedback, you might attract either one of your friends who might be interested in seeing you as a wife now, or when you practice with him or them, when you do go out and you meet people on dates and things like that, rather than doing these things like deliberately, because you've been practicing, it becomes natural for you to start engaging in serving the man without you having to think about it, because it's now a learned habit. It's a habit, and that man will find you more appealing than most modern women, where not only would he want to sleep with you, but he will also want to marry you, because now you've raised the value of who you are as a woman, and you do not diminish yourself and make yourself a slave at all, because a lot of modern women thinks being married and having a family is like slavery, and it's far from the truth. As a wife, as a mother, you are charged with supporting a husband and to guiding you guys into spiritual liberation. Plus, you're also like the center of raising the next generation of men and women, because you're the mother. Like, subscribe, ask questions in the comment section down below. Y'all have a good night.